The Democrats strike once again. The minimum wage has died in the Senate, and I'm very frustrated. I'm upset. I'm angry because progressives, people that actually care about other people, people that care about those people making $7.25 an hour, $7.25 for an hour's worth of hard work, over 40 hours a week, 52 weeks of the year, these people are making less than $16,000, and that's before taxes. And you have this party of the working class. You won't even stand up and give your constituents, people that came out and voted for you in the middle of a pandemic, you won't even give them $30,000 a year. That's the bare minimum. We should be asking for way more than that. I mean, we're talking about senators and people in the House who make $174,000 a year, our taxpayer money. And they're getting money into their campaign coffers from who? Billionaires who fund super PACs, corporations who make billions upon billions upon billions of dollars every year. And they come to you in Georgia. When they say, you vote for us, we'll give you $2,000 checks immediately. Out the door immediately, first week. That was bullshit. It immediately went from $2,000 to $1,400, which immediately went from the first week to sometime in mid-March. There were people who went out and voted on that word, already went back on that. And then they have the gall to hide behind the Senate parliamentarian. The Senate parliamentarian, you mean someone who has an advisory role, who has no power, none, no power. You're hiding behind the Senate parliamentarian who most people hadn't even heard of before this COVID relief bill was trying to go through. No, it's shameful. It's shameful. No one should ever give another dollar to this party. Couldn't be bothered to lift a finger in the middle of a depression where essential workers, right, making minimum wage, a lot of them, risking their health and life, and some of them have died, to make sure this country continues to function at a bare minimum level, and you won't even give them a raise? Which a raise to something that's not even sufficient enough, but this is how much we're asking for crumbs at this point. Unbelievable. We're asking people that make freaking $1,000 an hour or whatever to give people $15 an hour, and they can't be bothered to do it. In this video, I'm going to show y'all how hiding behind all those rules and procedures and all that bullshit is just that. It's bullshit. They basically filibustered themselves within this filibuster-proof relief package, procedural motion or vote or however you want to call it. Through reconciliation, you only need 50 votes plus the tiebreaker vote, Kamala Harris, 51 votes. They basically filibustered themselves on the minimum wage, and I'm going to show you how right now. We're going to watch this clip from Bad Faith. David Sirota, who, great journalist, Daily Poster is his website, his what he writes for. I think he founded it. Everyone go subscribe to him. He's gonna show us and let us know just how the Democrats actually filibustered themselves on the $15 minimum wage. That's how much disdain they have for working people, that they increased the threshold from 50 votes to 60 votes by not lifting a finger and not doing anything, the bare minimum for working people. Watch this.
My knowledge, you put the bill that would not comply with the Byrd Rule. The parliamentarian advises the presiding officer that, it doesn't comply with the Byrd Rule. Then the presiding officer, as we've been saying for the past few days, Kamala Harris can say, you know what? No, I think it does. And that's fine.
Right. I mean, look,
but they did not even get to that point.
Correct.
Because of the parliamentarian's advisory opinion that was made a few days ago.
Actually, it's almost worse. So here's one scenario that could have happened. The House passes its bill with the minimum wage. The parliamentarian says the minimum wage does not comport with the Byrd Rule. Chuck Schumer could have said, I'm putting my perfecting amendment down on the Senate, this sort of central, fixing this. This is the bill. And Chuck Schumer, am ignoring the parliamentarian by saying, I don't care. Like, we're keeping the minimum wage in. And then what would have happened is Lindsey Graham would have stood up on the floor and said, I raise a point of order on this piece of the bill, which I don't believe comports with the rules. And then the chair could have said, Lindsey Graham, shut up. Like, I don't care about it. But Kamala Harris could have been like, your point of order is not well heard. Then Lindsey Graham could have said, I disagree with Kamala Harris. I want a ruling. I want a Senate vote of what Kamala Harris just said. And they would have needed 60 votes to overturn Kamala Harris. And they wouldn't have had that. And the minimum wage could then have been kept in the underlying bill. That's a scenario that could have
That's what I'm
happened.
trying to get at.
That's not what happened.
That this began with a capitulation.
Correct.
Using the excuse of the parliamentarians.
Yes,
advisory
what happened
opinion,
today was
which is hoodwinking.
Yes, what
It's
happened today
simply a
was
lie.
Chuck Schumer could have, instead of doing that scenario, that story I just told you, he brought to the floor a bill that stripped out the minimum wage. And then Bernie was like, I want to add it back in. Now, to be clear, when Bernie said, I want to add it back in, the chair could have said, when Lindsey Graham stood up and been like, that he can't even add it back in, the chair could have been like, no, Lindsey Graham, your point of order is not well heard. And then Graham still would have needed 60 votes to overturn that. And there would have at least been a 50 vote situation where you could vote just straight up. Do you want the minimum wage added to the bill or not? In a 50 vote scenario. That was not allowed to happen because they couldn't get 60 votes.
Okay, you see there, he just explained it all. Essentially, there was a few different ways that this could have just passed with 50 votes or 51 votes plus Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris could have, as the presiding officer over the Senate, which is what the vice president is, the only power that the vice president actually has, can actually wield to do good for people. She could have simply overruled the parliamentarian. She decided not to. Another person, Chuck Schumer, leader of the Senate majority leader for the Democrats. He could have also kept the minimum wage in the bill. Of course, the Republicans would have objected, but that objection would have needed 60 votes to pass. And if you can get 10 Democrats that'll vote with that objection, you have yourself a whole nother issue. 60 votes is what would have needed to pass that amendment. Did Chuck Schumer do that? No. Did Kamala Harris do that? No. Unbelievable. Chuck Schumer, I think David said at the end there, he also could have did another thing, which basically was he can say Lindsey Graham's amendment, doesn't have standing. I don't know, something like that. And then you would have needed 60 votes against that as well. That, him saying that procedural motion or whatever, for that to be struck down as well. Instead, this is what they did instead. Kamala Harris didn't lift a finger. Chuck Schumer didn't lift a finger. Joe Biden did nothing in the public to push for this. In fact, there were stories coming out when he was coming out weeks before telling governors and telling people, no, this wasn't going to be in the bill. So he actually did the opposite. He worked against the $15 minimum wage in the bill. Unbelievable. Actually, it is believable considering Joe Biden's legislative record of always screwing over working people. Instead, this is what they forced. They forced Bernie Sanders to put up an amendment. They forced him to put up an amendment because Chuck Schumer brought the bill to the floor without the minimum wage in it. And now guess what? Guess what that amendment needs? Guess what that vote needs? 60 votes now. The minimum wage then needed 60 votes. So even if those 8 Democratic senators who ended up voting against the amendment anyway, they still voted against the amendment in the middle of a pandemic. The party of the working class voted against the $15 minimum wage. 8 of them voted against a $15 minimum wage. It would have needed 60 anyway because they forced Bernie to put up an amendment to the bill, which would have needed 60 votes because the Republicans basically said, this doesn't have any standing or whatever. They did a procedural motion that made it, because it wasn't already in the bill and because Bernie had to put up the amendment, now it needed 60 votes. This what these 8 Democratic senators voted against, this was just a procedural motion to have a vote. To have a vote, it needed 60 votes. It didn't even get 50. Couldn't even hold the Democratic caucus, which Joe Biden won, telling people he was the unity candidate and could get Republicans. He could get these same Republicans they were just calling traitors and treasonous because of January 6th. He was going to be able to get those Republicans to come along and vote for bills like this that was going to help the American people. When he couldn't even hold his own caucus, he couldn't even hold his own party to the standard that he said he was going to hold Republicans to. Someone in the other party, they've been obstructionists, voting against every single bill the Democrats have put up since Barack Obama. Have you not learned? You were in that administration, Joe Biden. Of course you know. Of course you know. You just wanted a distraction. You just wanted something in the way so you didn't actually have to look like you were giving a shit and lifting a damn finger to do anything for the American people. Well, but let's look at what they said before they had your vote. Let's look at what they said when Trump was in office, when they wanted you to help them get into power. Let's look at what they were saying. Here's what Joe Biden was saying. He said it's not enough to praise our essential workers. We have to protect and pay them. Protect and pay them. Why don't you want to pay them, Joe Biden? Why didn't you lift the finger to help them? You see how easy this is? Kamala Harris, she says to all the workers who have kept our country going, thank you. From the essential workers picking up another early shift to frontline healthcare workers working on extra shifts. Your nation owes you a debt of gratitude. We will keep fighting for you. Really, Kamala? Because it looks like to me you deferred to the Senate parliamentarian who has literally no power to do shit. You deferred to that person and said, no, we're not going to give those essential workers a pay raise. We're not going to do that. We're not going to fight for you. In fact, we're going to fight against you. Okay, Chuck Schumer, leader of the Senate, Democratic leader of the Senate. What did he say? It's been 100 days since the House passed legislation to raise the minimum wage, but Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell refuses to bring the bill up for a vote. October 26, 2019. You see what they do when they're not in power? They know all the words. They know how to co-opt you into their movement. And then once they have power, once they have your vote, they will do nothing to help you. Nothing. Why did you take it out of the bill? Why did you basically filibuster your own party when it comes to the minimum wage, Chuck Schumer? I'm exposing you as a fraud. You're a fraud. You're a Wall Street backed fraud. You did nothing to help those minimum wage workers. Nothing. Here's what Kamala Harris said in an interview with the blackenterprise.com. She said, combating racial inequities must be prioritized. And Joe Biden knows that. Really? The guy who eulogized a segregationist, he did the eulogy at a segregationist funeral, an ardent, open public segregationist in the 70s. That's what Joe Biden did. He also wrote the crime bill, which disproportionately hurt black and brown people. He's basically the modern architect of mass incarceration. Does he really know that, Kamala Harris? Of course, you did your part in California. You did your part to lock up black and brown people for marijuana. Then you went on The Breakfast Club, a black show, on The Breakfast Club, and you laughed about it. You laughed about smoking weed yourself, but you were locking people up for the same thing. Just unbelievable. Here's what Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II said. The entire Democratic Party platform says they want to eradicate poverty. At VP Harris and at POTUS Biden ran on raising the federal minimum wage to $15 per hour. They never said $15 unless the parliamentarian advises not to. It must have just been in the fine print. We didn't read that. We didn't read that part. The Progressive Pup on Twitter says, Dems have all the power yet have negotiated themselves down. 1. Biden, $400 per week through September. House Dems say $400 per week through August. So they already negotiated 1 month down. Why? What's the point of that? Then the Senate deal one was $300 per week through September, up to $10,000 in tax forgiveness. Then Manchin comes back, $300 per week through September 6th, 3 less weeks. and around $10,000 of tax forgiveness. No input from Republicans. This bill got no Republican votes. Can't blame the Republicans. All Democrats. I mean, it's just sickening. It's just sickening to watch this. So whenever a politician says anything on Twitter, immediately don't believe them. Immediately think that they're lying, and make sure you got to check them and pressure them into actually keeping that promise or upholding what they put in that tweet or in that press release. I mean, what is this party? Y'all can't even give working people $30,000 per year before taxes. Y'all can't even do that. You filibuster yourself. You make the process so damn difficult. And then you put someone like Bernie out there on an island. Bernie, you going to keep letting them do this to you? I mean, I'm sure there's not much he could have done, but are you going to get the House progressives to do anything? To actually withhold their vote on this bill unless that minimum wage is back in there? Because remember, this was the only solid thing that Joe Biden promised you. Are you going to call out Joe Biden? Because he hasn't done shit to help you get this minimum wage passed. He hasn't done a damn thing. I haven't seen him lift a finger. In fact, he's been fighting against it. Yeah, I'm angry. I'm mad. What do working people have to do? Be on the front lines making $8 an hour in the middle of a damn pandemic, risking their lives, some of them dying, and you still won't even give them a modest $15 an hour when there's places in Europe, there's places around the world who their minimum wage is $20 an hour, where United States of America, we can't even get to 15 with the party of the working class? It's just egregious. I mean, I don't know what else to say. This party, to a lot of people, it's dead. Because if we can't even get this, something that they ostensibly voiced support for, and it has almost 70% approval in the country, a modest minimum wage increase for the first time since George Bush, and we can't even get that? Sickening.